Hey guys, hope you're excited as we are. We're back here with a new episode of the In-Studio Review. We were lucky enough to see an early screening of Tolkien. Tolkien is a biographical drama documenting the early days of J.R. Tolkien, Oxford professor and famous author for books like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
So the movie focuses heavily on all of his relationships in his life that helped influence all of his novels and his writing. His three closest friends, who were all artists in their own right. One was a painter, one was a poet, and one was a musician. His girlfriend Edith was also a big influence in his life and his writing, and his Oxford professor. From a really young age, he was really influenced by reading. You saw at a really young age, he was already well ahead of his class.
Well, we see from very early on, J.R. Tolkien has a very difficult life. He lost his parents. He's having a tough time finding friends in school. He's having a tough time dealing with certain professors just because he's actually smarter than the rest of the pack. That's kind of one interesting thing that they put in there. And also, he's very involved in language from a very early age, as we see in an early scene talking to a girl that he's interested in, how he really dives into that, and he really has love for linguistics.
Some of the most interesting parts of the movie are the symmetry that many of the aspects of his life carry into his writing. And if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and if you read all the books, then you can very easily catch that symmetry. So it's scenarios that they wrote in like that, or conversations that are had, that are some of the most interesting parts of the movie, because you can see how his own life influenced his books.
J.R. Tolkien definitely goes into depth with friendships, with relationships in general, and you can see that because he's had very deep relationships in his past, especially with his friends, especially with the girl that he loved.
One area that we felt that the story lacked in was his writing process. We just didn't see enough of the influence. You would only get that if you've read all the books and you can understand how the movie influenced the books. But if you were a general moviegoer and you walked into this theaters not reading the books, then you wouldn't really get that impact, because you were told how they're influenced and you can see these people influencing him, but you were never really given too many opportunities showing him in the studio writing, telling you some of his stories. You don't really get too much of that. There was too much focus on the relationship with Edith, and not as much focus on how all of those relationships influenced the actual writing. One of his biggest influences should have been his professor. I would assume his professor would have a massive influence on him, because it kind of steered him in a direction of creating all of these languages. At the time that he met the professor, he had only written one language, but the Lord of the Rings and the Middle-earth series have hundreds of languages. I would have assumed that they would have showed more of that relationship, but they really didn't. The professor was only in a few scenes, and it didn't show him in any of the language classes really studying language. So that would have been cool to see as well.
I think the main thing with this movie is they were trying to pull from a couple different heartfelt movies like Good Will Hunting, movies like Stand By Me, movies like The Dead Poets Society. We definitely feel that they could have spent a little bit less time with characters like Edith. The times with his friends, they were great times. Helheim. What was that saying? Helheim. That was the saying. Sorry, I'm not gonna do it like that because the people are gonna think.
Helheim.
Helheim. I'll do it like this.
Yeah.
I think overall, though, we would have liked to see a little bit more scenes with the professor, because that's really the person who would extract the phoenix out of J.R. Tolkien and the fantasy novel writer that we know.
So overall, what did you think of the movie?
I thought this movie was well done. I thought that they could have done a little bit more, just because they weren't in complete collaboration with the Tolkien estate. They could have had a little bit more of his early work played in there. Could have been really good value to the script. There was a lot of witty moments. There were a lot of cool moments. There's some surprise CGI in there. Won't spoil that for you guys. Overall, 7 out of 10.
We loved the story. We felt they focused too much on a few characters, such as his girlfriend Edith, and didn't focus enough on his actual storytelling and his actual writing. We felt that they didn't hit the mark there. Any fans of the books would have went into the theater, expecting to hear more of the behind the scenes. There were only a few moments where he actually brought you into his world, gave you some tidbits of his writing, and told some few stories. Those were some of the best moments in the movie, and we would have liked to see more of that. Overall, 7 out of 10.
If you guys like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for in-studio reviews. We're going to be doing Detective Pikachu really soon. It comes out this Friday. We can't wait for you guys to see that episode.
Click down below to subscribe to us. If you guys have watched the movie, join in on the conversation on our next video.
Take care, guys.